Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Manlius Town Board meeting for June 12th, 2024, starting at 6:30 p.m. As always, we are virtual and remote. The meetings are broadcast to our website, to Facebook, and to our YouTube page, as well as we have a Zoom that runs the meeting, and folks are allowed to join us remotely and participate in the meeting. If you're interested in joining us remotely, you can find those instructions at the top of each of our agendas. So next up, I would ask Councilman Ashley to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So just looking at the open podium sign-in sheet, for ADUs, we do have a public hearing coming up tonight, so we'll reserve that comment. Same thing for Seven Pines, just so that people are aware, and then it looks like we have some comments on Burdick Street, the Aquatic Center, we'll have that as a portion of the agenda. So first up, looks like Jay Karolewski for Burdick Street. If you'd like to come up and come to the podium.
I was just looking to come for information on those, and I'm not quite sure about it, it is why.
Yeah, okay. So I'll just run through the Burdick Streets then. Let's see, we've got a K, Halbert,
Hamlet, I'm with her.
okay. Betty Kinney,
Kearney,
Kearney,
I'm here for information.
okay.
I would say great job for information.
No worries, so we do have, so for anybody, this is your first time, we do have a sign-in sheet for everybody, and then this open podium sheet
Oh,
is specifically for the beginning of our meetings. No worries, no worries. Although, I do wanna say, you know, and we have one more, anyone?
Ben, Jane?
Would you like to speak?
Sure.
Right here at the podium, we'll give you 3 minutes.
So if you could speak, there's a microphone on the podium, that's how we ask you.
Yeah.
You could come podium if you want. But you
Okay, I didn't know I was gonna be the spokesperson.
Could you say your name and your address?
My name is Gloria Wagner. I live at Lee Terrace, 200 Lee Terrace, and I've lived there for 45 years. Okay, we live in a very quiet, nice neighborhood on one street. We do have traffic that goes through, you know, let me see what I wrote here. Hang on. Okay, some of our concerns are, what kind of zoning is it gonna be that they're talking about? That's one, okay? It's so close to our backyards. The railroad tracks used to be right there, and now it's gonna be like right in our backyard. Okay, I mean, our yard ends and then there it is, okay? I know we're used to Dow lumber being there with the noise, as you would maybe would say there's noise, but we're not used to noise at night, okay? At 5 o'clock, Dow lumber shut, and we have peaceful, quiet neighborhood. We're gonna have a lot of noise now in our neighborhood. We're gonna have cars going back and forth in our neighborhood. We're gonna have bright lights. You know, different kind of people moving in that, you know, maybe bring our, I don't know. I know that there's gonna be like 30% of, I don't even know how to say it.
Workforce housing?
Yes.
And it, you know, that'll bring our property down also. You know, we know who's in our neighborhood, we don't know who's gonna be in our neighborhood, it's gonna be a lot of new people. There's gonna be a pickleball thing and and all this noise and commotion back there. You know, I mean, we're concerned about the zoning. What kind of zoning are we gonna be living in?
Well, that's actually what this hearing is about, so that's
Okay.
the appropriate question to ask.
And what we have, I mean, right now, I look back there and I see the Taco Bell lumber. Are we gonna have a shield there? Is there gonna be something that we're not gonna be gonna look at this and view this in our backyard? Okay, these are all some of our concerns, I mean. So that's about all I have to say. I'm sure I have more, but I can't think of it right now, so.
Yeah, so I'll happily address, I know there were some posts on Facebook, so what we were doing tonight with that, what's called a planned unit development, it's a PUD. This is to answer your zoning question. The PUD is, so we've done this for a few other projects, but a PUD is a zone that is defined for a particular project. So that, basically there's a negotiation, so for example, for the Twin Ponds, we were looking for workforce housing, we were looking for density, we were looking for different things. And so it allowed for us to develop a zone specifically for a given project. This is gonna be the same process. And what we have right now is we have some design documents from the developer, and then we have a draft PUD that's being considered. What is on the agenda tonight is to set a date for a public hearing that will be in actually quite some time, given how busy the board is. And in the meantime, we're gonna have a conversation about the development planning committee. There's gonna be a committee that is gonna look extensively at this project. The planning board has also looked at it on Monday. They've given us some really great feedback. We're at the beginning of that process.
Right.
So really moving forward, any of the concerns, you know, the noise, the screening of any kind, additional traffic, all those things are gonna get answers to as we develop this PUD with the developer. And as of right now, I believe we had the plan to set the date for that public hearing to July 24th. So there's gonna be conversations with the developers, with the planning board, with the town board, with fire, police, highway, all these different entities that are gonna help us learn more about what we want that project to look like. And then there'll be opportunities for public comment on July 24th and likely continuing after that. So we are at the very, very early stages with that project. And outside of us saying we're gonna have a hearing, that was the only item on the agenda for that project.
Okay, before I step down here, the other thing was, I don't know why they can't just push it on the other side of Down River so they're not right bumped up to our backyard. I know it's wetlands, it's all wetlands over there, but if they were on the other side, it wouldn't be so close to us.
Well, so one of the considerations is that there's a parcel there, that is I think 4 or 5 acres. The developer owns that parcel, and so they're looking to develop that parcel. It's not, when we look at development like this, it's not that, you know, we find the best place for it. It really comes down to who owns the parcels. And the parcel you're referring to is owned by a different entity. I believe they're looking at some leasing contracts for that, so it's not as simple as find another location. It's the developer wants to develop this piece of property, and so that's the process of working with them to say, is there a development that makes sense based on the comprehensive plan, based on public feedback and things like that.
Okay. Okay,
And what I would say, for anybody that wants to follow that project, please do. And we get so few opportunities to really pitch this, but you can sign up, you can get the agendas for every meeting to your text, to your phone as a text, you can get it to your email. If you wanna know what's going on in the town of Manlius, other than reading the Eagle Bulletin, watching our agendas, and if you see things on there and you have questions, you just let us know. You can reach out to the clerk's office, you can reach out to my office. If there's any questions about, hey, it says set date for a public hearing, what does that mean? I have concerns about this project, how do I get those concerns to the board, to the developer, all these things. If everybody in the room signs up for the agendas, you're gonna know exactly when things are happening, you're gonna have at least a week's notice, you have time to collect your comments, share it with your neighbors. One of the best ways to stay in the loop about what's going on a kind of weekly or bi-weekly basis with the town. And, you know, when it comes out, middle of July, you'll see that there's a public hearing set for such and such a date. And then also too, when we set public hearings for zone changes, we send out letters to nearby property owners. I believe the number we're looking at is 1,000 feet from the property. So for this one, I'm sure we're gonna be sending out a couple hundred, if not 300 or 400 letters that will clearly say, hey, this is what the change is, this is what the public hearing is, when it's happening, if you have questions, how to get that feedback to us, all that type of stuff. So again, it's very early on, there is a lot more communication that's coming, it's just, tonight, the plan was to set a date for that public hearing.
One more thing, they're talking about opening up South Manor Drive, putting a road like through there to come, like, so it would be actually go around. They're gonna use that to go around.
There's a potential there to
Yeah.
have some kind
So
of
that
connection.
means they're gonna be speeding down the back of our roads, is what they're gonna do. And go down that, and yeah, and I already know that because they're doing it on these here right now. Okay? So now we're gonna have a road in front of us, and then we're gonna have a road in back of us, and we're just a little strip of houses there. With a road in front of us and a road in back of us. So I don't think it's fair. Okay, but I know, there's nothing I can say, I just wanna know what the zoning is and,
Your timing is excellent. This is the very beginning of the process, and you've listed several concerns for us to consider.
And part of this process is with the PUD specifically, is it allows this board to put extra limitations on the property. So if there's concerns about speeding, if there's concerns about noise, bright lights, all those things, we can actually dictate clearly what we're looking for in order for the project to move forward, and we've had the success of a couple of the PUDs where we've worked with the residents to kind of go back and forth and produce something that is mindful of the resident feedback so that it's a better product for everybody at the end. So that's gonna be an ongoing process. I don't think there'll be a vote on this until probably well into August or September. So there's plenty of time, there's gonna be more public meetings, there'll be more information that comes out, so there'll be plenty of time and the open podium's always here, and then when we have the public hearing, we'll queue up however many people wanna come and talk and give their feedback, and the developer will be here to listen to that.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is this a done deal?
What?
Is this a done deal? This is already in the planning, it's already been approved
No,
or not?
Nothing's.
no, we had a presentation by the developer last time, and we were setting a date for a public hearing tonight. Even the paperwork that's online is still in a draft format.
Well, because of the solar issue we ran into before with the public meeting, and it was a done deal when we all showed up to the public meeting. That's why I'm asking.
Next up, Matt Denton, Town Hall Maintenance.
Hello, everyone. Matthew Dungy, 4600 Weststone. I'm just here because it's been stated repeatedly by members of the town board that the existing town hall is just not accessible. That's health and safety, health and safety issues for employees and the public. And so I'd like to ask, what are you doing today to resolve these issues? Because these issues are not going to go away regardless of whether or not we move forward with a new town building. We're still going to be in this building for multiple years to come. I, for one, don't want a new building, but regardless, these issues need to be addressed. And so I'm curious, is town board actually actively doing to address the accessibility and the safety and the health issues that exist with the building?
So I will say over time, there's been a number of accessibility improvements that have been made to the building. We're at the step now where really accessibility improvements would include an elevator. That's really the only way to solve one of those major problems. That doesn't seem like something that we would want to do if we have an intent to move to a new facility. So that's something that we're dealing with. Again, when we have folks that have mobility issues that come to the wrong door, many times we'll let them know they're at the wrong door, but what will likely happen is the town employees will run up and down the stairs to get them whatever paperwork they need and take care of them on whichever floor they happen to move into. So really, at this point, as far as somewhat low-hanging fruit, something that makes economic sense for accessibility, that's really the limitations we have. And then for maintenance, we are continuing to deal with a leaky roof. We're continuing to deal with leaks throughout the whole facility, electrical issues that we have an electrician come in and try to solve these problems. But at the end of the day, it's really a race against the current infrastructure of the building, and any major improvements that would solve a lot of those are pretty, significant expenditures. And so we're kind of always weighing that, and then really, hoping that the heat continues to work throughout the winter, and that we have air conditioning throughout the summer, and trying to address those issues as needed without spending money into a building that our feasibility study makes pretty clear, it's just really not something that we can continue to use for a long time.
Well, I would like to make sure that town board keeps open, that renovation is always a possibility. There is HVAC issues, electrical issues, these are all things addressed. If you want a home, you address them. It's the same thing here. If there is an elevator need, when you look up the square right here, there is a little courtyard. Why aren't we building right there? Build another exit, like a, add-on that can have an elevator, can have additional spaces. So I just want to make sure that these issues aren't strictly being used as a reason to promote a new building. And that if there are accessibility issues that can be addressed, if there's health and safety issues that can be addressed, that they get addressed here by the board on our existing building. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I- So Ingrid and I are meeting with a construction engineer next week regarding that.
Excellent. I'd love to see the notes on that. Thank you all.
Okay, is anyone else here for open podium by show of hands? Anyone who's joining us remotely, please use the raise hand function. Okay, so we will move on to agenda item number 4. So the Development Planning Committee.
Supervisor, members of the board. I sent out the Development Planning Committee email to everybody on the proposed members list. And the only comment I received back was, would they be able to attend virtually, which we would allow in accordance with our procedures for attending a meeting virtually. Does anybody else have any other questions regarding the inception of the Development Planning Committee or the use of it?
Ready?
Yeah, I'll just go back to one of the, whenever we schedule this first meeting, this verdict tree PUD is gonna be one of the first things we talk about. There's likely a couple of other items that'll make it onto that first agenda. But again, the goal of this committee is when we have larger scale projects that impact a large area, impact a number of different services, whether it's fire, police, highway, EMS, schools, any of these things. This planning committee is an opportunity for all of the stakeholders to come together and give developers that initial feedback to say, hey, these are all of our concerns, even before they come to a town board meeting. And the goal here is to make it so that when developers come in and they want to work with us and develop a good project, rather than having them bounce back and forth between boards and conversations with different stakeholders in the community, the idea is to get everybody to sit down and tell the developer that here's all the feedback. We strongly suggest that you consider it and modify your plans as you come to the town board and as this project moves forward to save everybody some time. So I know I'm really excited for it. We've got a great group of people that are gonna be on this committee. Again, it's not binding. It's gonna essentially, maybe make some recommendations, maybe more likely just make recommendations to developers. But I think it'll be a nice, way for us to kind of continue the comprehensive approach to development in the town that I think we're looking for.
Yeah, I think it's great, and I don't know how much you want to get into it in this meeting, but we had a discussion on this last month with watershed stewards, and so in the sample workflow process and task 12 environmental quality review, we just wanted to make allow for the option to pass any considerations through the watershed stewards committee for review, separate and distinct from seeker
Absolutely.
on parcels where that's sensible.
We have members of Sustainable Manlius, member of the Comprehensive Planning Steering Committee also on there, so the watershed stewards would be.
Great, yeah, not necessarily putting a person on the committee, but
Okay.
just an opportunity to review through the expertise of this committee of
Right,
science.
especially if you're close to, well,
Absolutely.
We were working on sort of defining what we mean by a sensitive property, and we'll be able to contribute that to this process for sure.
So what I will do now is after this, I will create the agenda and send that out for the first meeting
great.
for the Development Planning Committee.
We will look for a motion to create the committee.
Absolutely, I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your work on this. I know it started out as a fun idea in probably December, and you've been able to get it to a fully functioning thing that's gonna happen. Very excited. Thank you very much for all the work. So next up, we have a discussion about the community pool. We've got two members of our study group here, Steve Ball and Mike Langen. We're gonna talk to the board about an opportunity that we have to look at a feasibility study for a pretty reasonable price tag.
All right, yeah, thank you for having me here, appreciate it. So both Mike and myself have taken a 9-hour, it's called a virtual Build a Pool conference. So that was something we worked through. Mike put together some really excellent notes, and I think we brought some copies tonight. If anyone here is interested in checking that out. So we learned a number of things in that course, such as how to scope something that's sustainable, how to include programming first, and then sizing the facility based on the needs of community. We're looking at a facility that's going to meet the needs and engage all demographics in the community, from kids with drowning prevention, learn to swim, all the way up through seniors, aquatic therapy, aquatic fitness programs, things like that. With Mike, if you want to turn it over to him to talk a little bit about what the enterprise study is and the opportunity.
Thanks, Steve. Here are copies. I understand you were emailed them, but here's hard copies in case you need them. So what we learned in addition to doing a formal feasibility study, which is costly and lengthy and thorough, there's something called a feasibility light study that this organization offers. The organization, it's an expert group it's a spinoff from USA Swimming, which is the authoritative body. And it's a 40-page document. It's got 24 aspects to it, covering things like the demographic study, market analysis, funding sources, operating costs, income sources, and they can have it ready in a 5-day turnaround, 5 business day turnaround. Usually costs $3,000 to $5,000, but for people who participate in the program, it's $1,500. So what you do is you answer 15 questions, and it's a back and forth. They're not like set. And I believe those were emailed to you also. And these are just initial what we're thinking, based on the program, but they'll tell us, they'll say, oh, your demographics won't sustain that programming. And by the way, the whole purpose of this is to give the town the ability to create something that's self-sustaining, no burden on the town, generating programming income so the town residents can get free benefits, like learn to swim and aquatic therapy. The place, interestingly, they recommend that you put a physical therapist office in the facility so they can operate and pay rent in one of the pools. Anyway, so that's what we're asking for. It's again 40 pages and it's $1,500, and I think it's a good deal.
And so the conversation we had at the pool committee, or the pool study group meeting, was that this would be a really useful way to prepare us to go after like a planning grant that would build a larger feasibility study that would do some design work, look at potential sites in the town, and really give that this is a quick way to generate a pretty productive document that we can then turn around and go after some money to do a larger study. I don't know exactly how much of the paperwork people have, but it is $1,500 for the feasibility study. I would entertain a motion, but if people would rather wait and see some more of the paperwork, we can definitely.
Is who got to see me, because I don't believe we did.
Yeah.
I think the pool committee did, so.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No worries. So
I'd like to read it. I mean, on the face of it, I'm for it. As a cyclist, it's always been a thing of where's the velodrome? And so USA Cycling had a service like this to help communities, site infrastructure like this.
Yep.
Obviously, the pool is much more popular than velodrome, but I would like to read the.
Absolutely.
So what we'll do then is, I'll make sure everybody gets everything, and then we'll have it on the agenda for next time for approval.
Okay.
So thanks very much.
No, thank you.
And it's okay, so next up, we've got our first public hearing. So this is on the accessory dwelling unit law. I see that we do have one person who signed up for open podium, so any discussion? I know there was quite a bit of media coverage, lots of social media comments on the proposed law. I know we have a couple small, edits, the goal is not really to consider this tonight, more to hear the feedback. We've got a couple outstanding questions on some language that we have. One of the sections is about, if we can require that, and, you know, we have language that initially, it has to be owner occupied in order to get a accessory dwelling unit permit to build another dwelling unit on the structure. We've got some questions about that and a couple of cleanup things, but the goal tonight is, you know, the bulk of that law is pretty well thought out. It's, you know, well considered. It was a product of both the planning board, the town board, and the zoning board having a great conversation and leveraging some other resources, so.
I can
Yeah.
add to Supervisor Deere's comments. So having worked on aging policy for New York State, this is something that's been looked at in particular for a location for a caregiver to live, so someone can remain in their home. It could also be utilized for a family member that, you know, you'd like some more oversight over. If it's a tiny a tiny house, there are restrictions about how far back that needs to be. So it's not gonna be plunked in someone's front yard. So aesthetically, it would still look pleasing and the neighborhood would continue to have the same look and feel. So my support of that in part comes from interest in addressing the home care worker shortage, the shortage of accessibility for people who do have mobility issues and need to be near care.
And there's considerable funding available for people to do this, so, but without a regulation in place, you can't tap into that right now, it's 80+1 New York State funding. It's considerable to incentivize people, and again, it's to address the need for housing like this in this specific area, caregiver, children, you know, all the things we're citing, not vacation rentals.
I think that's something I did want to cover before we open up for comments.
Yeah.
So there is a restriction, these can't be, you know, an ADU would not be able to be rented out for anything less than 30 days. So this, you know, listen, if you have 12 people in it over time, that's one consideration. But also the law initially caps the number of permits at 50. So for all we know, that could be 5 years worth of ADU permits, it could be 6 months worth of ADU permits, but the goal is so that we have a stopgap to say, hey, once we've offered 50 of these permits, that we can then take a look, what's working, what's not working, what changes need to be made, and then we would be able to either pass a simple law change to increase that limit or remove that limit, or at the same time, we could add any additional restrictions, remove restrictions, so just as a, you know, way to kind of bring everybody up to speed on that conversation. The goal is, there's a need, there's the ability to do it, there's funding available. Let's dip a toe in the water, see if it works. If it takes off, great, we'll learn something. And if it doesn't, then it's just another law on the books that doesn't get leveraged very often. So with that, I would look for a motion to.
I make a motion to waive the reading notice.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Motion to open the public hearing.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So,
You can send it to them.
yeah, I had one person signed up, Gerald Susko.
Gerald Susko, 7614 Hunt Lane, Fayetteville. In my reading and just this morning about the ADUs that are proposed, the goal here is to increase housing density. I'm guessing everybody here has moved to the suburbs to live in a less dense area. If I want to live in the urban area, I would live in the city of Syracuse. If I want to live in a village, a little more dense, that's fine. Other suburbs and communities, peace and quiet. That's something to consider. Just in the recent meetings, you had brought this housing density up in the Twin Pond project. And there you state that this location is particularly desirable for high density housing because it will not impact existing single family residential neighborhoods. Now we're proposing to impact any such neighborhood at any given time by anyone. So You also state you propose these ADUs be allotted in certain neighborhoods, not mentioned, identified, but certain neighborhoods with larger lots. So I'm guessing Mallers Landing would be particularly feasible because of their large land sizes. But has anyone done a study to show what prices of their homes would be affected by having such ADUs on premises? And you also mentioned no more than 2 bedrooms, but you don't state number of people or persons living in those 2 bedrooms. So I see a lot of gray that has not been answered, and particularly, I do not want to see my neighbor with 3 or 4 people additionally living next door to them, especially if they're impacted by handicapped facilities. That means additional parking and other constraints within my neighborhood or anybody else. So while some people want to see urban or higher density, I didn't move to Manlius to see that. I think.
Thank you. So just a show of hands, anyone would like to make a public comment on the ADU law? Come on.
Mine are more in the way of questions, but they follow on the preceding gentleman's. So the 50 is not a hard cap, it's a temporary cap, correct?
Well, it's the cap that is in the law. If it were to pass, it's in the law and we need another law change that would go through a public hearing cycle to change.
Okay, so the concern follows from some of the other comments that have been made, and that is, if I were to build one on my property, let's say, hypothetically, I could move into my ADU and rent out my house. I pass on, someone buys the property, are they restricted to living in the same property? I guess the concern is, at what point does this perpetuate changes in the composition of the neighborhood where they become rental, quasi boarding house, whatever, so that a neighborhood that has a certain characteristic changes by, again, putting grandma in the ADU is one thing, but there's nothing that says these are going to be occupied by grandmas. You know, whether this is going to be, I've got a fraternity that's going to occupy my house while I live on the side and pick up their beer bottles or whatever else. So what restrictions goes back to the question of, is there a number of people limited, and do they have to be a single family? So I rent out my property, does it have to be people who are related to each other? Can it be people who are unrelated? You know, as I say, a group of the swim team comes, oh, their swimmers are gone, so, you know, the swim team comes in and, you know, the hockey team or whatever else. So it has to do with the characteristic of how you set that up.
So I will say, you know, single family homes still in our code are defined as, you know, one dwelling for a family. The family is defined. This is something we're looking at in our general code review to further identify what a family is. We're just kind of trying to figure out what the right way to do that is.
Well, New York state law says up to 3 unrelated people. I could be wrong on my reading of it, but that's what I looked up and saw the statute saying. So at what point does that become again a cap, or does that become advisory, or, you know, is it enforceable and so on?
And that's, I will say, to the ownership question, that's something that we're currently looking at. We're trying to understand exactly what we are within our purview to change within the law, and then as to the numbers, that's likely where the conversation will lead next.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone who's joining us remotely, please use the raise hand function. I see we've got one person. I want to promote them. Oh, yeah.
Can you all see and hear me?
You just
Great.
give us your name.
Yep, I'm Kelly Fumarola. I live in the village of Fayetteville. And I strongly support the resolution for ADUs. We have an incredible housing crisis in this region. And I think, you know, we've already spoken to the need for seniors to have housing. seniors who don't want to remain in their home and have the same upkeep that they might have, being able to move in with a family member in an ADU is a great solution. I know, while the ADU, I don't believe is within the Village of Fayetteville, still as a town of Manlius resident, I'm in full support of it, and of course would be supportive if the village, chooses to do the same thing. I think, again, I know a lot of people have talked about Micron, but before Micron even comes and before all of the workers that are going to come to this area over the next couple of decades, there is a current housing crisis, and we need to free up homes for seniors that want to move in, out of their homes, and also, make sure that there is a diversity of housing here in the town of Manlius. I think homeowners are going to choose to do this if they want to. Everyone should have the ability to activate their own asset, certainly as income generation, but probably more likely to support family members who are looking for additional forms of housing. So I am in full support of the ADU, and I really commend the town for taking it to this point.
Thank you very much. Anyone else here in the room? Just show of hands if you'd like to comment on the ADU public hearing. Okay, anyone else joining us remotely? Do you want to go ahead and read the two comments that were submitted?
Sure. The first one was submitted, it says, honorable ladies and gentlemen, as you may recall, I have been a longtime resident of the town of Manlius since 1979 and am a retired real estate lawyer. I am submitting this letter in lieu of a personal or Zoom appearance, intending it to be a comment at the public hearing to be held at your meeting on June 12, 2024, with respect to the proposed local law amending the text of chapter 155 of the town of Manlius code to include accessory dwelling units among the specifically permitted uses in the town's RA, R3, or R4 districts. I wholly support your adoption of this proposed local law for the laudable purpose of offering a broader variety of housing options within the town of Manlius under the terms and conditions set forth in the proposed local law. However, I should note that the impact of adoption of the proposed local law will be seriously limited by the common existence of use restrictions which run with the land and which have been imposed for decades by developers of single-family residential subdivisions within the town. Such restrictive covenants are created by recording in the Onondaga County Clerk's Office a standalone declaration of restrictions or by including such restrictions in recorded deeds. Such restrictive are both a benefit and a burden to owners of homes within such subdivisions. In almost all cases, such restrictions would prohibit accessory dwelling units in such subdivisions without a unanimous consent of all subdivision homeowners, or possibly by a mechanism by a subdivision's architectural control committee, if any, to consider a waiver of such restrictions. In the event a homeowner chose to erect a accessory dwelling unit in violation of such a use restriction, any other homeowner in the subdivision could commence a court action to block construction of such an accessory dwelling unit. The existence of such a use restriction would also complicate any mortgage loan financing related to the construction or such an accessory dwelling unit. In any case, and despite the foregoing concern, I believe it is still desirable to adopt the proposed local law, as there are an unknown number of properties within the town which are free of such use restrictions upon which a accessory dwelling unit could be constructed. Thanks for your consideration. Sincerely yours, James Thomas Bassett. And then we also received a public comment from Elaine Denton. She said I support legalizing accessory dwelling units. This is a great option to help the housing crisis in Onondaga County. The housing crisis will take many solutions, and this is a smart option. Thank you.
So just one last call, anybody joining us on Zoom, please use the raise hand function. Anyone else here? Okay.
Motion to, did you guys?
Nope.
No, motion to close the public hearing?
So, yeah, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So I want to thank everybody for their comments. As we stated before, we've got a little bit more work to do on some of the particulars. Definitely want to take a look at what possibility to control the number of people that would be living in one of these. Just as a reminder too, these ADUs would still be subject to all the relevant setbacks. That are, with, when you put in a shed, how far it can be from the property line, all those things. A shed over 125 square feet. It's still subject to all those restrictions. If someone's gonna put in a pool, it would go through the various boards. So there's still quite a bit of oversight, but I appreciate the comments. And we will, depending on how much the law changes, we'll, bring this forward in another meeting and, potentially look forward to, either some changes and considering in the future. So, thank you.
Do you want to do the state environmental quality review portion of this? So we've done research. This is a type 1 action for purposes of the State Environmental Quality Review Act. There may be some other interested agencies, including villages, which are located very close by. So does anyone at this time want to make a motion designating the town of Manlius Town Board as a lead agency for secret purposes, or make a motion of our intent to designate ourselves as lead agency for secret purposes and to notify other interested agencies?
Yeah, I would make a motion to identify ourselves as lead agency and notify related municipalities and agencies.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
So they have 30 days to say they have an interest, and then we can.
So, trustee Matt, we'll see a letter from us, letting you know that we're intended to be leading this. Anything else? So next up, this is a public hearing on a zone change for 7155 Taylor Road in East Syracuse. I will say, do you want to maybe update the board and everyone here with what the conversation happened this morning?
You want to open the public hearing and then I'll.
No, why don't you fill us in?
So based on the review, the R3 designation would not be appropriate, as the property would require a use variance for the septic. I had spoken with the property owner, and they are at this time not interested in attempting or getting quotes to run sewer to their property. So what I will be doing is working with the property owner for their next possible options. It may include changing the property or requesting a change to RA, which would require future lot coverage, frontage variances for the implementation of the new single-family home. Again, there is already a single-family home on the property, and the property has been zoned commercial. What I would request from the homeowner is confirmation from Onondaga County that they would be able to continue use of a septic system in the improved area that they have, and the county would not require them to move to sewers if they did put a new single-family dwelling on that property. I believe that will aid the town board and the zoning board for making any decisions moving forward, as they would be able to essentially obtain county approval for the proposed septic system with the new home.
And then we'll say too, once we have confirmation that the septic would be allowable, one of the things we'll do is have them go to the zoning board and have a conversation about if we can't zone it to R3, and there's really not another residential RA. RA, there's plenty of other RA zone parcels. RA would be the best, but it will require some pretty significant area variances, setback variances, things like that. So that's where, once we have an understanding, well, really, once the homeowner has an understanding of what they can and can't do with their septic, then we'll kind of pick this matter back up. And determine, so likely, as kind of drafted here to move to R3, not gonna be considered. Still want to take in the comments on the specific zone change, as the intent is still there to essentially allow for a new residential house to be there. But we'll kind of have to see what the county says, and then we'll have to have a conversation with the zoning board and see how that goes, so, thank you.
I just really appreciate your work on that, Tom, because when this first came before us a few weeks ago, my first question was, what is this homework? What are they trying to accomplish? Why are they seeking our freedom on this? Because that won't work. And so in observing their presentation of the planning board, the applicant clearly just was picking randomly, just trying to make it work. And so here we have the town and its various boards and its planning director, helping residents see the right path forward, and so thank you. It's nice to see government work for people.
Absolutely.
Tom, I have two questions for you. So if the county says that they do not have to hook up, will they be required to, connect to, well, I guess the first question is it a modern raised septic? And then if they are allowed to connect to that and it's new construction, are they gonna have to build, replace the current septic with a raised septic?
From my understanding, if your septic system at your home, which was designed in the 60s, 70s, 80s, anywhere current to before now, and was not able to meet current standards, they look at that and they look for best engineering practices to see if that is appropriate. If you have the ability, from my understanding, again, I'm not the county, but they would, if you have the ability to connect. But I believe that is the feasibility of connecting if you had a sewer main right outside your home. So I would defer to the county for the homeowner, whether they have to put in a raised bed pressurized system or something of that nature for however the soil perks over there. Again, they're gonna need a engineer. It will probably, depending on what type of home, the amount of bedrooms, baths, whether their current septic system is appropriate for the new one, may require them to implement a new system, or if their system can currently handle what is there, may allow them to keep their system if it is operating appropriately.
Thank you.
Supervisor, just a comment. So with my educator hat on the town website, if you're hearing all of these codes and you look at the zoning map, you can see what those all mean, for folks in the room or folks watching remotely. So all of those codes, RA, residential agriculture, CB, commercial district, those are all spelled out on the town website. So feel free to reference that to have this
And
make
it was
more
like,
sense.
again, love to pitch all the great pieces of technology we have. We have two options. We have the town code that's available through the website. That's just a listing of, it's like if you came in and grabbed the binder and you wanted to read through it. We do have what our counselor here referred to as the zoning map. This is a really cool piece of technology where you can see every parcel in the town, how it's zoned, who owns it, all this extra information. And what's nice about that is that has embedded code information. So if you just wanna look at a parcel and then find out what the codes are for that parcel, it's all right there. It's super easy to use. So definitely check it out. So any other comments, questions? Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to waive reading.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
All those in favor? Aye.
And I know we did receive at least one letter.
Yeah. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So is there anyone here in the room, show of hands, that'd like to make a comment for the Taylor Road zone change public hearing? If there's anyone joining us via Zoom, please use the raise hand function. And with that, I will ask our town clerk to read the one, comment we received.
Correct. Dear town board, I am okay with the zone change request at 7155 Taylor Road, East Syracuse, New York. Sincerely, Lynn A. Palmer. And then we received an email from Edward and Deborah Dietrich. We both agreed that changing this address from commercial zone to a residential zone makes sense, and we support it.
One more opportunity, any hands, any raised hands via Zoom? Okay.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, so again, we'll wait to see what comes up next with that. And then, so next up, we do have a public hearing for a zone change at 8104 Casanova Road in Manlius. This is for what's known as the Seven Pines area. And I know there has been some conversation since the planning board. So if you'd like to come up as the developer, and then Mr. Edkin, if you'd like to come up to kind of provide, a little bit more discussion if you're willing. But basically, so this is something that the town had considered previously. There are 4 parcels that were zoned commercially. They asked to be moved to mixed residential or residential mixed use to allow for what was all office buildings to become some residential up top with office buildings down on the main floor. When we previously considered a larger zone change, there was a compromise to change 3 of the zones and leave 1, the property that abuts neighbors, unchanged. There's been, some conversations, some developments through that process, but basically they're back with asking for the allowance of the RM zone for this parcel. And what I will say is we did have some conversations today about some of the concerns that residents have. And we did have a conversation about something like a deed restriction. So the RM zone would allow potentially for some higher end commercial uses. These things would all require a special use permit with the planning board, but if we consider the deed restriction, that would add a further restriction, and then also it opens up the ability to enforce to the neighbors themselves. So if this, if this were to get developed and 5 years from now it gets sold, and something was before the board or the planning board to put in McDonald's or something like that, and there, there was concerns about if the planning board can really issue a special permit, the residents themselves would have an opportunity to take a court action and actually stop that development due to the deed restriction. So I just wanted to kind of bring everybody up to speed. That's gonna probably be an offline conversation. I wanted to get a sense from the board, any major concerns about using the deed restriction to allow us to change the zone to RM. Also remove the portion of the parcel that's currently still zoned commercial. It's currently commercial towards the road, RA towards the back. It's out of
Different owner?
what?
Isn't it a different owner?
No, so this parcel is the one that has, I believe, the driveway.
Mhm.
And that has a portion that is zoned commercial. It's one of the, we say that we have very few multi-zone parcels, but we
This is one of them.
seem to talk about them every 3 months. But I just wanted to get a sense from the board, if there's any concerns or anything like that.
What is the owner amenable to that?
Amenable to changing to the RM.
Well, we know that.
With the deed
Oh, so the deed restriction. Yeah, absolutely, appreciate that. We find it to be a great compromise, recognizing between ownership and the neighbors. This allows the residential component to advance while protecting the neighborhood, which was important to the neighbors. And then also, as part of these conversations, we also agreed to revise the site plan in conjunction with the neighbors as well. We're gonna go back to the planning board as part of that as well.
Yeah, I know, there were some concerns about where the dumpster was located and things like that, but given the fact that we're kind of getting into the details here with the deed restriction, kind of opens everything back up, the planning board can reconsider site plans. Yeah, so at the end of the day, same goal is to allow for what is now currently office space to have some residential, but this change that we're discussing would provide a lot more restrictions on this.
Doesn't open the floodgates to all the concerns that the neighbors have brought forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
And listen, in 20 years, if none of the neighbors care about the McDonald's going in,
It would still not be McDonald's if it's RM.
We can commit to no McDonald's.
Yeah, so, anything like that?
No, I appreciate the summary, Mr. Deere. I feel encouraged, with the neighbors are in agreement with what we proposed. We believe that this is appropriate, consistent with the comprehensive plan to add the additional residential over here. So we think it's a home run project for all involved, and certainly we hope for the support of the neighbors.
Thank you very much. Okay, so with that, I would look to the board to open the public hearing. So I wanted to make sure that we kind of brought everybody up to speed. But we are still looking for any and all comments about the zone change to RM, any concerns with that, as that will be part of the conversation moving forward, so.
So I make a motion to waive the reading.
Sorry, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Motion to open the public hearing.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So show of hands, anyone here to comment on the 7 points, if you'd like to come up?
Hey everybody, so my name is James D'Agostino. I live at 8072 Caterpillar Road, right on the corner of Whetstone. But anyone who lives in the neighborhood on a nice day like tonight, will see me sitting on my front porch, watching the world go by. I am concerned about the change in zoning. I've heard a lot of comments here tonight about protecting the character of the neighborhood, what that means for zoning changes. And I'm concerned. I don't want to balance where I'm sitting on my porch listening to everybody order their food, whether it be now or 20 years. I don't plan to go anywhere, like I'm tired. So I'm opposed to the zoning change. I appreciate all the consideration of everybody here. And I just want to express my opposition to this. I'm sorry, I have to leave. I have to go.
Thank you very much. So kind of working from my left, any other hands? that would like
I just have a question.
If you'd like to come to the podium.
I'm a Weaver, I live on Burbeck Drive. I just want some more information about the residential units on the second floor. What that would be.
Yeah, the project itself, and the analogy with Dallas is absolutely at this location. The intent currently, there's 4 buildings on the site. 2 have already been rezoned to include the residential on the second floor, and then traditional commercial office on the first. Sort of the same thing with this additional project here. So we're adding 7 additional residential units. I think there's 4 on the second and 3 on the first floor. And then we're talking about a 600 square foot, 700 square foot last commercial office that's on the first floor.
So you're talking about apartments?
Yeah, the apartments, yeah, the market rate apartments. Which, as I said, it's appropriate to the comprehensive plan certainly needed within this community.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joshua Walby. I live at 4686 West Stone Road, and I am also very much opposed to this idea. I personally have PTSD, and it took us a couple of years to find a house that was in a nice, quiet area, and this is right against the back of my house, and so there's going to be a lot of construction there, a lot of noise, and we looked very hard to find this very particular house, location, all of that. And yeah, I don't know, this is just something that I feel like we've been dealing with. Literally, as soon as we moved in was the first time that we had a town board meeting about this. And I know that we were supposed to be contacted by the developers and stuff like that. I never received anything out of that. I was told that there was going to be a fence put up. There was no fence. So there's just been a lot of miscommunication, and I just feel like us as neighbors are not being heard as well by the board. So I just want to express my opposition to this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Chris Van Patten. I live at 8235 Burbeck Drive, North Lana. So not directly abutting the property, but within the 1,000-foot range that you referenced earlier in our letter. I can speak on behalf of my wife, we're fully in support of this plan. This village, this town rather needs density and needs it badly. And a lot of people my age and younger want to live in Manlius and cannot live in Manlius. The only thing that I would ask the board, and I understand this sort of out of scope of a zoning change, but if say New York State wants to, revisit 92 like they did within the village, within that section between Academy and Enders, I would love to see traffic calming to address that. It's a difficult stretch of road as it is. I think Burbeck, where that sort of intersects, would be a great spot for a light. Bike lanes would be great to have the sidewalks connected to the village as well. And we would love that, benefit from that. So thank you for everything you're doing to increase density. And I'd love to see this project succeed.
Thank you. Just a shout out, we have the sidewalk program. We did have an initial meeting that we're gonna talk about later. And then conversation about 92 has come up because it's a state road. It's a little bit bigger of a lift than what we're looking at with vendors. But I want you to know that that's a conversation that's actively happening. You are not the first people to express the need for that road to be usable by people that live there. That's really what the general sense is. So I appreciate the comments, and I can't say it's gonna happen anytime soon, but sign up for the agendas, and if it ever happens, you'll be the first to know. Show of hands, anyone else would like to make comments?
Trevor Ricken, 4674 Whetstone Road. I share the largest of the property lines with the developer. The gentleman who just spoke is to the left of me, and then the orifices, and then Jamie on the corner, all share property lines. There was a meeting earlier, informal, Ryan and I have been speaking. Dr. Bott and I met way back in the first round about a year ago about the fence when they got 3/4 of what they were asking for. It was candidly disheartening, and you had some passionate neighbors that we felt like we made a deal, and they're not keeping their end of the bargain. You know, the fence wasn't built, but also the apartments weren't built, so there's that piece of it. It would have been nice for them to have moved forward with 3/4 of the project, frankly, so that these are predominantly older homes. My home was built in 1900. A lot of them were older than that. Would have been nice to see what it was like in the event that we are not seeing, smelling, or hearing this development. It's great. We hope that they do it. We hope that there are additional homes for the people, but it shouldn't come at the expense of our quality of life. There's an argument that their financing hasn't come through. That's not really a good argument. Again, going back to their profit versus our quality of life is not really fair. With that said, I'm not speaking for all of our neighbors, but I did speak with the developers earlier. I'll say that John was a good mediator earlier today, and you know, provided we can put some mechanisms in place that make it as good or better for us, there should be no reason that we can't find a way to work together to support it. I don't know the mechanism that's going to happen today. I certainly don't want the public hearing to be closed and lose my voice and my opportunity for myself and any of my neighbors that may not have had a chance to speak to them. So I will firmly say that today I am opposed to the rezone to RM, but I'm certainly open to a conversation.
Just as a reminder, anybody joining via Zoom, please use the raise hand function. Any other show of hands here would like to make a comment for this public hearing? Okay.
I think we've got a letter, we received a letter.
Yes.
We do. Dear sir and madam, thank you for the opportunity to address this board in regard to the zone change request for the Seven Pines Office Park to be discussed at the June 12th meeting. We reside at 4689 Whetstone Road with our 2 children. We have been following the proposed zone change at the Seven Pines Office Park for roughly 2 years with great concern. Last year, the board agreed to a compromising granting 75% of what the developer requested in exchange for rejecting these rezone of one of the 4 parcels and requiring a fence. No compromise is perfect for everyone, but we thought we had something everyone could be comfortable with. Like several neighbors, we feel like the board will be going back on their word if they agree to this change. The developer has not met with any of us to provide an opportunity for discussion or input, and it seems unfair for them to continue to propose changes that will impact the neighborhood without involving any of the neighbors. The town board should stick to their decision, and the property owner should stick to their agreement as well. Sincerely, Kevin and Lisa Speciale.
Thank you. I appreciate the neighbors' comments, and I just want to offer some additional clarity and reaffirm our commitment to continue to work with the neighbors as we work through this process here. There was some discussion, mention of the fence in particular. As Trevor appropriately mentioned, no construction's been done, and that fence is and will continue to be part of our future scope once we begin construction within the project. It's on the approved site plan, and we do intend to build that. In addition, we also spoke about increasing the foliage because there's some concern around the visibility lines between the property lines as well as the property side as well. So we do intend to increase the foliage to make sure that there's more of a visual barrier. Regarding construction and noise, it's something we're very sympathetic to. There's ways to mitigate that, and we had conversations when we were working through the original design process to have insulated windows as an example, making sure that the windows are double pane so that you're not having that ambient noises transferring across property lines. That's something that's part of our design plan that we're going to be adopting, that we're building now. We believe the best and brightest use of this property is residential mixed use. I mean, that's the reality here. There's no secret that the world of the commercial office space continues to be decreased while the need for residential housing continues to be increased. Here sits fairly dated, not quite dilapidated yet, but they continue to be. We've owned the properties for 3 years and there's not much leasing traffic that's appropriate over here that we found here in the 3 years of working on this. So we believe that the best and brightest use is that mixed use appropriate conversion here. So you turn residential to the second floors, you appropriately, I call it right size, the commercial component, reducing that down to the first floor where people have that transient, you walk into the office, you walk out of the office. That makes sense. That makes sense given the neighborhood that these buildings currently are mixed within, appropriate next to suburban park. It's within a suburban area in general. And go back to the zoning map, if you look at the zoning map, this particular parcel, it's the one yellow amongst the green everywhere else around it. So it really makes sense to appropriately add this to the mixed use, which we believe to be the appropriate approach here. And I'll say, you know, we own multiple properties across this community. We're fantastic neighbors. We've always tried to listen and incorporate that neighborhood, the neighbor's approach to the design process. We continue to make sure that that will happen here as well. So, thank you.
So, any last comments? So we will, the board's okay, we'll hold this open for, yeah, so I would just say, you know, as we kind of table this, I would just ask that, you know, some consideration to, once there is something to report out, we will kind of, I think what we'll do is we'll be able to announce that and make it clear so that what I don't want to see happen is these disparate comments kind of come in over the next few meetings until we've had an opportunity to say, hey, this is the conversation we had, this is the next step, but I do want to respect the idea of keeping this open so that if there is an opportunity and if anybody would like to come and speak at this public hearing and any meeting moving forward, you're more than welcome to. Just ask in the the goal of timely meetings and making sure that all of our relevant neighbors are here to have that conversation, just as much as possible if you're willing to respect that. So with that, we will table that public hearing. And we are up to item number 9. So this is, we're gonna set a date for public hearing for the planned unit development at 5912 North Burdick Street in East Syracuse. So what we have available on the website right now is the draft plan, as well as some schematic designs and a resolution from the Onondaga County Planning Board. In talking with the developer and some members of the planning board, there will be a continued discussion about what this potentially could look like if it were to move forward in any way. By bringing in lots of our fire EMS, all these people, so that we can have a deeper conversation. Talk to the planning board about their concerns, and like I said, we do already have some adjustments to the PUD as it stands to make, reducing the total floors to 4. I forget what the other one was. Changing it from regional shopping to neighborhood shopping for what would be the allowed commercial uses there, which again brings that scope back down to something that is much smaller in scale, and would make sense in the community. So with that, I would ask for a motion to schedule the public hearing.
So, Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to set the date for the proposed planned unit development at 5912 North Burdick Street, East Syracuse, tax map number 77-04-01.1 for July 24th, 24 at 6:35 p.m.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
So for those of you interested in that, go to the thing to get the agendas, but the public hearing will be in July.
July 24th. Yes. Next up.
I'm sorry, Angela, you lost me. For this project on Burdick Street, you're holding a another public meeting?
The first public hearing.
The first public hearing.
Is July 24th.
July 24th, I thought it was this evening.
I know that there were some posts on Facebook and other social media, but this was strictly to set the date for a public hearing.
And you will get, when it's actually a public hearing, if you live within a thousand feet, you'll get that. Thank you.
You know, we never heard anything about this until, like, just January.
We
It's
are,
all brand new.
it really is brand new.
So are they gonna notify the neighbors that there's a public hearing?
Yeah.
Yep, we're gonna notify everybody.
Now that we have a date set, we can notify you of the date, so it's gonna go out
Do that.
by now.
a letter.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Location, time.
And thank you for your interest.
Well, that's what Supervisor Deere was referring to. Your best bet is to look at the plans that are actually on the website now.
Yeah. Yeah, and also too, feel free, if you guys have comments, we're happy to take emails, answer questions, things like that. It's just that the official, we have a legal authority to hold a public hearing for something like this, that's when that is. But there's still plenty of time for conversation back and forth, and anything we get, we're gonna pass along to the developers to raise those concerns so that we can have, the goal is when we sit down for the public hearing, that we've considered as much of the feedback we've already received. We've already received a good amount of feedback from the planning board, and again, the goal is to have it so that we have kind of the next phase of this where we can say, hey, the developers taking into consideration, we have used some of the language in that PUD. And so it'll be, while we have a draft here, the hope is that when we get to that public hearing in July, that we'll have a much more fleshed out and, we'll be able to answer some more questions specifically.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening. I will say, lots of fun stuff, if you guys wanna hang out. I mean, we're here for 1 minute. We gotta do something fun at the end of the meeting.
Adorable.
Next up, tree commission secretary.
Yes, so a couple of meetings ago, we moved some money from the highway department to to the tree commission's own line. We forgot to move the money to pay our tree secretary though. So now that's what we're gonna be doing here. So I'd like to make a motion to transfer funds in the amount of $1,500 from account A005.5010.100 highway funds to account A005.6310.100 tree commission funds for the tree commission secretary.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Deputy Supervisor, would you walk us through the number of bids that we've got here to accept?
So the next item is the highway department vehicle storage building. We did put this out to bid. We got 5 bids for both the construction and the electrical, so there was a lot of interest in this project. Our consultant has recommended that we go with Hewin Electric and McGinnis Nelson Construction. They were both the low bid in their category. So this is for a pole barn, essentially, that would just be to keep equipment in during the off season, and then in the opposite off season, put different equipment in there to get it out of the weather, because right now the stuff is stored out. So I would like to make a motion to award the general construction contract in the amount of $276,000 to McGinnis Nelson Construction for the construction of a new vehicle storage building.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carries.
And I'll take a motion to award the electrical contract in the amount of $66,885 to Hewin Electric for the new vehicle storage.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. I will say, this has been quite a project to follow along. I know we've got some interesting funding stream and everything. I like how it started out as a cold storage shed and is now a vehicle storage building. But this is like the deputy supervisor referenced, we do have our equipment that is just sitting outside, so this is a really good way to continue the amazing maintenance program we have on all that highway equipment.
This is also an opportunity to thank Senator Mannion, who secured the funding that we used to. Oh, okay, all right. So speaking of which, this is infrastructure season. As many of you know, we have a water supply district at for Sky Ridge on the Chittenango edge of Manlius. We have been working for a number of years with residents there to figure out a way to. I didn't want to. Oh, sorry. Alright. As many of you know, we've had flooding on. This is one of my examples of government can work if you're patient. So I had applied for state money a couple years ago. By winning that round, it just meant they sent it to the federal government. Then we got a letter back from FEMA a year later saying, yes, they would pay us, which is not even a lot of money, to do a study of the drainage of North Eagle Village Road to see if there's ways to abate the flooding issues there. So this is, we have the money to do the study. We put out an RFP again to engineering firms. We received only one bid. We checked with FEMA, that was okay. So we would like to make a motion to award the North Eagle Village Road Drainage Study contract to Miller Engineers in the amount of $31,900.
Absolutely second, this is great.
Yeah, I will say, this is definitely one of those roads that, I will say, when you move over to the area, you maybe don't know that it floods all the time, and then you move there and you find out it floods quite a bit. And this is gonna, what is nice about this is, at the current solutions we have in place seem to be best practice. This study is gonna help us understand, is there something we can be doing better? Which, the goal is to help mitigate damage to the road, which we are currently repairing when it floods. And the idea here is we spend this money to study it, figure out what we can do better, and then we save money in the long term by not having to repair that road so often. So, all those in favor? Opposed?
Our police department also gets involved because we have to close that road all the time.
Okay, motion carries, we award that to Miller Engineering. We know about timeline, what was it?
That actually can start right away, so
Oh,
it's a hydrology testing, so they'll need just engineers one and then.
Great, I'll start.
Okay, so here we are back at Skybridge, where we're trying to have a water supply for these residents. So thanks to Assemblyman Sturpey, we have some money available to support actual infrastructure replacement of the existing system. The town participated in drinking water source protection program for all of last year to verify that the well water is in fact good enough to invest it for another 50 years, and it is. So the plan is to essentially replace the failing infrastructure with new parts that would basically do the same thing, which is a tank and piping around the street. Each house, just like the rest of us, right, makes their own line from their house to the road line. So this funding would just replace the road line, the tank, and then there are two well houses with a pump in them, and so it would replace or at least refresh what those pumps are doing. It also includes some amount of electric things so that they can communicate with the water authority, which is who manages the system. So just for all of your reassurance, we do not manage the system. That is subcontracted, which is the next agenda item, to someone else who knows what they're doing. So in this case, I would like to I'd like to make a motion to accept the proposal for engineering services related, I'm sorry, we did put this out to bid, we did receive bids, so we did receive more than one bid for this, but the low bid was also Miller Engineering. So in this case, we'd like to make a motion to accept the proposal for engineering services related to the Skyridge Water Supply District infrastructure improvements prepared by Miller Engineers in the amount of $315,512, and enter into an agreement with the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York. Don't ask me why it's called Dormitory Authority, but it's the capital funding for the State of New York, for up to $2 million in funding for the improvements and to authorize the town to expend up to $25,000 in American Rescue Plan Act dollars to fund these improvements.
1 second.
So I will say this has been, this is a unique situation within the town where we have this water system that services, very small. Again, this is one of those times where we don't really know how we back ourselves into this corner, but we have the responsibility. We've been able to work with Assemblyman Sturpey to just make sure that these, 30 residents? 29 residents have access to clean drinking water.
And we certainly tried the bigger, bolder way of addressing this, and we were not successful pushing that forward. So this is sort of plan B or plan C or plan D at this point to get safe, clean water to our residents.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
This is just the engineering part. There will be another, when we get bids for the actual construction, there'll be another one.
Opposed? So motion carries. And then next up.
So now we have, somebody has to manage this water system. So our old system we had a 40-year agreement with the Onondaga County Water Authority to manage the water. And totally coincidentally, with nothing related to this project, it expires this month. So I don't want you to think there's anything weird going on, it just happens to be the same month. With the assistance of our town attorney, we have renegotiated that agreement. They were not willing to do another 40 years, but we do an agreement for 15 years to provide the operation, the maintenance for it.
I would hope that we have a bigger, bolder solution to the water problem within 15 years.
Okay.
Sweet.
They would love that too.
Yeah.
So I'd like to make a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing an operation and maintenance agreement between Onondaga County Water Authority and the county maintenance.
You just been in a whirlwind, so.
Yeah.
I'm Sarah second. Yeah.
So prior to calling for a vote, I know we received a letter, from, I believe, Aaron Trojan.
Yep, Erin Trojan sent an email, just wanted it to be read. Stated the residents of the Skyridge Water Supply District are appreciative of the town and Aqua's efforts to draft a new operations and maintenance agreement for the system. On behalf of the district, I support the town entering into this agreement. Thank you, Erin Trojan.
And for your information, they have a resident group that manages the relationship with Aqua, and Aaron is the chair of that.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Yes, this is great. So, this goes back to late last year. There was some leftover funding in the county budget to address drainage, stormwater, and flooding issues in the district, District 10, County District 10. And so we reached out to our then new town engineer for possible mitigation planning, and we were offered this great simple study. So I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the agreement with Labella Associates for a Perry Springs FM Road drainage assessment, which is essentially this region between, Elmbrook, Park Street, I think it's called, where the Perry Springs Fish Hatchery is, over to Centerfield neighborhood subdivision on Route 92, behind former Cafe Coolball, in that region back there where the water flows from the springs
In the creek,
to
where
the
it wants to
creek,
go.
oftentimes through people's basements.
I'll say.
Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So next up, we have, for a few years now, considered engaging with a communications professional to help us better communicate the going on, what happens here at Town Hall. I think it's a good example of tonight when we had a bunch of people who showed up thinking there was a public hearing scheduled and there wasn't, it was actually set a date. This is one of the many things in addition to just more reliable communications from the town about the programs that we've got going on. So Councilor Creasel started working with Encore Media Agency. I know I met with them in addition to, I forget who else was there at that meeting. But we kind of talked about some big picture ideas, and we have pretty reliably winnowed that down to an initial assessment. The goal here is to engage with a professional, have them take a look at what we're doing, have them tell us what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, what can we do to improve. Other ideas on the table, and then with the potential to work together to maybe address some of those issues. And so, right now what we have in front of us is, it's a situation analysis service agreement, for the cost of $9,000. And I know the board has had this for a little while, and if we are interested, or if there's any comments before we. Okay.
So the one thing I would reference, because your question is where are we gonna put it, is it is budgeted as sort of a generic communications line currently, because we have been wanting to do something like that.
So I would ask them.
Sure. Motion to approve the contract for a SWOT analysis with Encore Media Agency.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, next up, would you like to read us the resolution? Plastic reduction resolution?
I'm going to speak here.
No, do you have it?
I have it electronically.
Okay. Yes, we didn't get this on the agenda, so Councilman McCurdy will go ahead and read that for us.
Okay, so this resolution is in support of New York State legislation that includes the Bigger Better Bottle Bill, which expands the deposit and the options for the type of beverages that can be turned in for deposits to increase recycling, and the Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act, which shifts the onus of managing and recycling materials to the manufacturers and reduces the tax burden for recycling. So support for the New York State Assembly and Senate to pass a strong Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act, Assembly Bill 5322B and Senate Bill 4246B, and expand the Senate's bottle bill A 6353 and the Senate Bill 237B.
I was just gonna say, if you want to just make the resolve.
Absolutely, perfect. Resolve further that the town of Manlius shall forward copies of this resolution to Governor Hochul, the New York State Assembly Speaker and New York State Senate Majority Leader, the local state assembly member Sturpey, the local state senator Mannion, and all others deemed necessary and proper.
Okay. So, we have a first and second?
Second.
Oh, yes. So all those in favor of the resolution? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. You're in support of the better bottle bill.
Perfect. Bigger, better bottle.
Bigger. Okay, so, next up is an update on the Enders Road sidewalk, district discussion. We, myself, some of the representatives from the sidewalk district, along with some of our councilors, we met with our town engineer, to kind of go over what had been discussed, what had been petitioned, a lot of the nuts and bolts of the sidewalk program. And I would say it was a really productive conversation. We took an opportunity to take a look at a couple other places, look at some other options on the table, but what we have asked our engineer to draft up is a proposal that will lay out a map plan and report for a sidewalk on Enders Road that considers a expanded district, and it is going to optionally include an extension on 173 down to the Eagleview neighborhood, which would allow the district to include the Eagleview neighborhood as the sidewalk is servicing them. 173 is a very different road than Enders Road, so the costs of per foot of sidewalk is likely very different. Also, there's drainage infrastructure, there's a lot to it. So we don't know if the better district, the one that is more affordable to the homeowners, is going to be the one that includes 173 or the much smaller, more targeted one. That's why we've asked them to provide both of those so we can make that decision. And just as a reminder for the neighborhood sidewalk program, this proposal is essentially when we will say, yes, this project is authorized. They have met the requirements of the neighborhood sidewalk program, and we are engaging the engineer using those funds that were set aside for the program. Our funds. Yes, indeed. So just a quick update. Any questions? So next up, you want to talk about the purchase of boardroom furniture?
So after the discussion at the last meeting, we did get a quote for a more modestly priced set of furniture. So I just want to, convey to the board, we have an option of the sort of the better quality set of furniture for the table, the modester price set of furniture, and whether or not we want to replace the standing chairs with other chairs, more modern chairs. So you have two choices on this set, and then it's a yes or no on the other set for now, and you can do more later if we decide to. But so I'm just leaving that up to people have.
I think tonight's meeting is a great example of why this isn't quite working. The 1950s school chairs. So I'm definitely in favor of making our residents more comfortable when they come to public meetings, and we do other things here other than sit in the audience and watch boring committee meetings. We have other activities that residents and constituents use this room for.
Yeah.
So,
I will say that a lot of the groups that use this room, and many of them would very much enjoy some more mobile furniture that allows for more arrangement without having to drag this massive table around.
I think the new tables are really important. Alyssa, I know you had comments last time. Do you have a preference between the two sets of chairs?
Between which two sets of chairs? Because you're just talking about the audience ones, which other sets of chairs? Because I see the tables difference. I couldn't really tell the difference between the chairs or the board chairs.
Oh, so it was,
They're both task chairs. There were both task chairs listed in the updated proposals. So I could see the difference in the tables, but not for the board member tables, but I couldn't see the difference in the chairs for the board chairs.
so I think he actually lowered the price of the table to try to get it under our budget. So did you like the lower price table?
They're different sizes. They're 30 by 72 or 36 by 72. And like, so they're completely different kind of tables. And honestly, I would have liked to have been able to see like an image of them. When I tried to Google it, they were just like, nothing came up. It was hard to find them for me on there for the tables. I understand we do need new chairs and tables there. Definitely need to get them for the audience. Again, the different sizes of the tables, I guess. It all just depends on what we want to have, what we want.
So these are even bigger. So the question is, do you think a 30-inch table could be effective, or do we need to decide?
I'm familiar because this furniture proposed is exactly what I have in my conference room in my day job, and they're great. They fold up quickly and easily get out of the way. We have a multi-purpose room. I see what's possible in this space if we were to upgrade it in this way. So definitely a 30-inch table, for sure, where they can move it, configured in a variety of ways. Many times the committee that's meeting has 3 people on it, other times we have a night like tonight. So it's great that you have easy flexibility there and you're not leaving a room set up to carry somebody,
Especially multiple meetings per day and shuffling back and forth. So did you want the 36-inch or the 30 inches of like?
30 is okay.
30-inch table, okay.
So the plan will be, we'll continue, so I think what we wanna do is we wanna get images of everything, and then we'll prepare a kind of total proposal. We'll kind of discuss that and take a look at that over time, and then, if we wanna draft something, I think having the pictures is a good idea, just for everybody's sake. But if we can, we can prepare something for the next meeting and try to move forward with that purchase.
Okay.
If we want to. Great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for going back to them and getting additional quotes for this.
Thank you.
So before we get into kind of the end of the meeting, does anyone have any new business?
I do. I would like to commend our highway department staff. We unfortunately did have an accident on Friday, and the highway team who were on the scene performed exceptional first aid, and the gentleman did not have to be hospitalized at all. The emergency room sent him home. So that was very, that they actually remembered all the things they've been trained on and did them right. So.
I would like to just there's a watershed stewards function on the 18th. It's Tuesday, our regular meeting, a monthly meeting of the Manlius watershed stewards. We're doing our first quote unquote field trip. So ordinarily we've been meeting at the Manlius library, then we've been meeting here at the sport room. However, on Tuesday, June 18th at 6:30 promptly, we will be meeting at the Berry Springs fish hatchery behind the new construction, the the Starbucks. Behind I call it the old Temple Dairy, but back there at the fishery. So come take a look, join us. We'll have our regular committee meeting following a little walking tour of the area and then a little visual.
Family friendly.
Very much. And that's June 18th, so it's gonna be bright, sunny, and nice.
And what time is that?
6:30.
6:30.
We want the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from May 22nd, 2024.
A second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the Supervisors report for May 2024.
One second. Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
So I have a question for you, Marie. The number here does not add in the paving, is the paving considered part of this abstract?
No, it didn't go through the abstract.
Okay.
We cut the check last week and John just wanted me to attach the invoices so you guys knew we paid it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because Roselli needed the check right away, since it was such a high.
Yeah, so and really the consideration was, it was budgeted for, this was planned maintenance on the road, so the goal was to allow things to move forward. But I just wanted to make sure everybody saw this.
All right, so I'd like to make a motion to approve abstract number 11 for $577,132.80.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. With that, ask for a motion to adjourn. So moved. All those in favor? Aye. Have a wonderful night, everybody.